I knew something was wrong the moment I saw that gray sedan again. It showed up every day in the same place, 3 blocks from my school in Lexington. I was only 7, but fear has a way of making you older inside. The car slowed down to match my steps and stayed just close enough to feel like it was breathing on my neck. When I heard the window slide down just a little and my name drifted out in a soft, fake-friendly voice, I felt my whole body turn cold even though the sun was warm on my back. I ran all the way home. My backpack bounced against me, heavy with books, but not nearly heavy enough to make me feel safe. I slammed the door of our apartment building behind me and stood there panting, knowing that tomorrow would be the same. I had tried to tell myself it was a mistake, a coincidence, anything, but I knew what patterns felt like, and this man had a pattern. That night at dinner, I told my mom everything. She worked long shifts at the hospital, and she looked so tired standing in the kitchen with her scrub still smelling like disinfectant. She listened, but I could tell she didn't really understand how scared I was. She told me she would call the school, talk to the crossing guard, maybe get home earlier, but I knew she couldn't. We needed her job, and fear didn't care about work schedules. I went to bed that night with the sound of sirens echoing somewhere in the city. I stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me, watching the shadows slide across my face. The school counselor hadn't believed me. The police officer who came to our school had brushed it off. Everyone thought a child couldn't possibly know danger better than adults. Everyone, except me. So I made a choice. It wasn't a normal choice for a kid. But I was out of normal options. There was a building downtown. A tall glass building with a name I had heard whispered in my apartment complex. Corel Transport. Women in my building talked about it in low tones while folding laundry. Something about the man who ran it. Something about power. Something about danger. Something about how he handled things that the police didn't or wouldn't. I didn't really understand what a mafia boss was. I only knew people were scared of him. And I knew one thing for sure. Scary people listen when other scary things are happening. So on the 8th afternoon, when the gray sedan appeared again, I didn't go home. Instead, I took a different street, walking toward the tall buildings downtown. The man didn't follow me there. He never followed into crowded areas. Maybe he didn't want witnesses, maybe he didn't want cameras. But I knew he wouldn't come that far. It took me 40 minutes to reach the Corel building. By then my legs hurt, my backpack felt heavy, and doubt kept whispering in my mind. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe no one here would care. Maybe they would laugh at me the way the counselor did. But I couldn't turn back. I couldn't go home and wait for the man in the gray car to get braver. I sat on the steps of the building and took out my homework to make myself look small and harmless. I could feel the security guards watching me, whispering, calling someone. I kept pretending to work on math problems even though my hands were shaking. 2 hours passed like that. My legs were numb, and my stomach hurt from hunger. The sun set behind the glass tower, painting the building orange and pink before fading into blue. I was close to giving up when a black sedan rolled up to the front entrance. It didn't make noise, it didn't flash lights, it just arrived the way powerful things do. Calm, silent, sure of itself. Everyone around me stood straighter. The back door opened, and a man stepped out. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly. He moved like someone who never rushed, because rushing was for people without control. His eyes scanned the area, and then they landed on me. I stood up so fast my papers scattered across the concrete. My voice shook, but I spoke anyway. "Please," I said. "I need help." He studied me with a stillness I had never seen in another person. Not cold, not soft, just complete. Like he could see through every word I had rehearsed. I told him everything. The gray car. The man who knew my name. The 9 days of fear. The adults who didn't believe me. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look away. He didn't brush me off the way everyone else had. When I finished, the world felt too quiet. I waited for him to tell me I was wrong, that I imagined it, that he couldn't do anything. But instead, he asked one simple question, in a voice so calm, it made my heart race. "Is the car there right now?" I told him no, that he only came when I walked home. And then the man nodded slowly, like he had already made a decision long before I finished talking. "Tomorrow," he said, "walk home exactly the same. Don't change anything." I knew what he meant. He was setting a trap, and I was part of it. Then he told one of his men to get the car. He opened the door and said he would take me home so my mother wouldn't worry. I didn't know his name then. I only knew the way everyone around him moved, like they were trained to protect him or fear him. Later, I would learn his name. Ryan Corville. The man people whispered about. The man everyone feared. The man I had asked to protect me. And for reasons I didn't understand yet, he said yes. The next day felt like walking straight into a storm, even though the sky over Lexington was bright and clear. I woke up before my alarm, my stomach tight with nerves. I kept hearing Ryan's voice telling me to walk the same route, to not look around, to act like nothing was different. It was strange how one night could change everything. I brushed my hair. I tied my shoes. I put on my backpack. But I didn't feel like a 7-year-old girl getting ready for school. I felt like someone standing on a bridge that could collapse if I took one wrong step. All morning I tried to focus in class, but my mind kept drifting to what might happen after the bell. When school ended, my legs felt shaky as I stepped outside. The sun was warm. Kids laughed. Teachers smiled. Everything looked normal, but it all felt wrong. I walked my usual path, counting each block the way I had for 9 days. I kept my arms loose at my sides, forcing myself to look straight ahead. Inside, my heart beat so hard I felt it in my throat. Then, right on time, the gray sedan appeared. It eased out of a side street and rolled into place behind me, just like always. Same tinted windows, same dull chrome bumper, same horrible feeling in my chest. But something was different this time. I wasn't alone. I didn't turn around. I didn't break the routine. I just kept walking, pretending my legs weren't trembling. I focused on my breathing like Ryan told me. Then I saw it. The black sedan. It approached from the opposite direction, smooth and steady. No sirens, no loud engine, just presence. Strong, certain, sure. It parked across the street, and before it even fully stopped, Ryan stepped out. He didn't run. He didn't yell. He didn't slam the door. He just walked with the same quiet confidence I'd seen on the steps of the Corral building. The kind of confidence that made the gray sedan freeze in place. I felt the moment everything changed. The gray car stopped creeping forward. The driver, who had once smirked when he said my name, leaned back in panic as Ryan reached the hood. Ryan didn't pull out a weapon or raise his voice. He simply placed his hand flat on the metal like he was claiming it. Then he set something on the hood. A thick envelope. The driver stared at it like it was a live wire. He looked from the envelope to Ryan and back again. I couldn't breathe. The driver finally reached out and opened it. His hands shook the entire time. Papers spilled into his lap. Photos, maps, screenshots. Every afternoon he had followed me. Every angle of his license plate. His face, captured by cameras he didn't even know existed. He flipped through each one, his fear growing with every page. The last photo had a message written on the back in perfect handwriting. The error already has witnesses. I watched his face drain of color. His mouth moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out. His world was collapsing in silence. Ryan stepped to the driver's window and leaned down just enough to speak. His lips barely moved, but whatever he said made the man's eyes go wide with horror. Pure horror. Like he had just seen the edge of something he wasn't meant to understand. Ryan straightened calmly, adjusted his suit cuffs the way men do when they're in full control, and turned away without waiting for a reply. The driver scrambled. He shoved the papers back inside the envelope and started the engine with shaking hands. The gray sedan took off so fast it almost hit the curb. He didn't look back. Not once. I stood frozen. My backpack strap twisted in my fist. All the fear in me trembled under my ribs. Not because of the man in the gray car anymore, but because of the man who had made him run. Ryan turned then and looked right at me. His eyes didn't soften, but they didn't scare me either. They were steady, sharp, a little bit sad maybe, or maybe I just imagined that. He nodded once. Not a smile, not reassurance, just a promise that everything that needed to happen was done. Then he walked back to his sedan and left the street just as quietly as he had arrived. The whole block held its breath. Curtains twitched. Dogs stopped barking. People stood frozen in yards and driveways, unsure of what they had just witnessed. I walked the last blocks home in silence. My legs felt heavy, but the shadows around me felt different now. Less threatening. Softer somehow. That night, telling my mom what happened felt impossible. How do you explain something like that? I skipped some parts. I kept others. I told her enough for her to understand the danger was gone. Mostly. She hugged me tighter than she had in weeks. And for the first time in 9 days, I wasn't scared to fall asleep. But fear has a strange way of leaving marks even after it's gone. And safety leaves its own marks too. The next week would teach me that, because the black sedan didn't disappear from my life. It only changed its distance. After that day, everything felt different. When I walked home from school the next afternoon, the gray sedan was gone. I looked at every corner, every parked car, every driveway, half expecting it to appear again. But it didn't. The street felt lighter somehow. My steps felt easier. My chest didn't feel tight the way it used to. But something else appeared instead. The black sedan. It wasn't close enough to be frightening. It stayed across the street or a little behind me, blending in with afternoon traffic, but I knew it was there. I could feel its presence the same way you feel a warm coat draped over your shoulders. Not heavy, not scary, just protective. That pattern continued for a week. Every day after school, the black sedan waited somewhere nearby. I never saw the driver. I never saw Ryan. But I felt watched in a way that didn't make my stomach twist with dread. It made me walk a little taller, like someone had placed invisible hands on my shoulders, guiding me safely home. My mom noticed it too. One night, she came home from a long shift and looked out our window at the car parked below. Her face tightened in confusion and worry and something else I couldn't name. She didn't say anything that night, but she kept glancing at the street long after the car drove away. Days passed. Then, weeks. The news talked about a man being arrested for stalking and surveillance. My teacher announced it during morning announcements with pride in her voice. She said it showed how much the school cared about safety. But I knew the truth. The school hadn't stopped him. The police hadn't stopped him. Ryan had. And the world would never know. Eventually, the black sedan stopped following me so closely. One Friday afternoon, I didn't see it at all. I walked home alone, waiting for fear to come back, but it didn't. It was strange how empty the street felt without that quiet shadow watching over me, but I told myself this was normal, that life was supposed to go back to the way it was. Except safety feels different once you've tasted it for the first time. That next Thursday evening, something happened that changed everything again. When I reached my building, the black sedan was there, not following, just parked. Waiting. I froze, gripping my backpack strap. The tinted windows hid everything inside, but something about it felt intentional, like it was there for a reason, not because of me, but maybe because of what I represented now. I went upstairs and tried to focus on homework, but my mind kept drifting to the car outside. When my mom came home that night, she set her bag down and walked straight to the window. She stared down at the car for a long time, her shoulders tense. "He's still protecting you," she said quietly. Her voice didn't sound scared this time. It sounded tired, grateful, confused, and a little overwhelmed. I wasn't sure what to say. She didn't ask me how I met him. She didn't ask why he cared. Maybe she already knew that some answers were too complicated to fit into tidy explanations. 2 days later, she woke me early on Saturday morning. She wasn't wearing her scrubs. She had ironed her nicest blouse instead. There was a firmness in her eyes I wasn't used to seeing, a determination that made her look almost taller. "I have an errand today," she said. "Something I need to understand." She didn't have to explain. I knew exactly where she was going. The Corral building. She didn't take me with her. She took the bus instead, getting off downtown where the glass tower rose above the city like a giant mirror. The security guards watched her closely as she entered. The marble lobby felt too big, too polished, too quiet for someone who spent her days rushing through crowded hospital halls. She gave her name at the desk, and they let her through. She was taken up an elevator that required a special card, higher and higher, until the doors opened onto a floor that felt quieter, colder, more powerful than the rest of the building. Then she saw him, Ryan Corville. He stood by the window, the city glowing behind him. When he turned, she said she felt something shift inside her chest. Not fear exactly, but the weight of meeting someone who moved the world in ways people weren't supposed to see. My mom didn't waste time. "I don't understand why you helped her," she said. She told me later that her voice shook when she said the words. Not because she was afraid of him, but because the truth of everything hit her at once. All the nights she came home exhausted, all the times she doubted me, all the fear she didn't know how to hold. Ryan listened the way he listened to me, with that complete stillness that made you feel like the only person in his world. She asked for help, he said, and no one else listened. His voice was calm, simple, but the words were heavy. Heavy enough to make my mom swallow hard, realizing what those 9 days had really cost me. She asked if she owed him anything. I think that scared her most of all. People like him didn't do favors without wanting something back. That was how the world worked. But he shook his head. "You owe me nothing." My mom told me she didn't believe him at first, not because he sounded dishonest, but because she didn't know how to accept kindness from someone dangerous, someone powerful, someone who scared the city into silence. But she believed him in the end. She said there was something strange in his eyes, something tired, something human, something lonely. She left his office without owing him anything, at least nothing he asked for. But something invisible settled between them that day. Something that felt like a debt of understanding, not fear. Something that felt like the beginning of a story neither of them planned for. A story I was right in the middle of without even knowing it. Winter came early that year, brushing Lexington with a thin layer of cold air that bit at my cheeks as Mom and I walked home from school. It was one of the rare afternoons when her shift ended early, and for the first time in weeks, we walked side by side like nothing bad had ever happened. The sun was soft, the wind gentle, and for a moment I felt like a normal kid again. We passed the Corral building on our route. I wasn't expecting anything. I was just thinking about hot chocolate and the math homework waiting in my backpack. But then I saw it. Across the street, outside a small cafe I had never really noticed, a paper cup sat on a corner table. Steam curled up from the top. No one was sitting there. Mom paused. Her eyes narrowed just a little. She tilted her head like she was listening to something only she could hear. "That's strange," she whispered. Before I could ask why, a young barista stepped out of the cafe, wiping her hands on her apron. She smiled politely, looking right at my mom. "That one's for you," she said. "Every Friday at this time, someone pays for a cup to be left here. No name, just instructions that it's for whoever needs it." Mom froze. My heart thumped once. Hard. The drink was made exactly the way she likes it. Cream, no sugar. Perfect. Mom's fingers trembled when she picked it up. She looked across the street at the Corral building, its glass walls reflecting the sky like a giant silent watcher. She didn't say Ryan's name. She didn't have to. Something in her eyes softened in a way I'd never seen before. We sat at the table. She sipped her coffee slowly, like each swallow meant something. I worked on homework while she just stared at the steam drifting into the air. It wasn't fear. It wasn't worry. It was something deeper, something warm, something that made her breathe differently. The next Friday, the cup was waiting again, and the Friday after that, and the next. Weeks passed, and that quiet ritual became part of our lives. Mom never went inside the cafe. She didn't ask the barista who ordered the drink. She didn't try to thank anyone. She just accepted the warmth, the same way she accepted long nights and early mornings, quietly, strongly, with a kind of tired grace. But I saw everything she didn't say. The way she slowed down when we neared the cafe. The way her eyes drifted toward the building's tall windows, even when she pretended not to look. The way she held the cup with both hands, like it wasn't just coffee, but reassurance, protection, maybe even attention she wasn't used to receiving. Sometimes, when sunlight hit the glass just right, I thought I saw a silhouette in one of the windows. Broad shoulders, a tall frame, still and watchful. It might have been a trick of the light, or it might have been something else. Mom never pointed it out. She didn't have to. Winter moved in fully. The city turned cold and quiet. But every Friday, that cup was waiting for her, perfectly made, perfectly timed, a message written in steam instead of words. I never saw Ryan again up close, not the way I had on the street that day. But sometimes his black sedan appeared near our building, never threatening, just present, like a shadow that had chosen to protect instead of frighten. And over time, the fear of the gray sedan faded into something almost unreal. A story that once scared me but no longer held teeth, because something stronger had replaced it. Mom started smiling more. Not big, bright smiles, softer ones. The kind that warmed her tired eyes even after a long shift. And every Friday she took a moment just for herself. A moment she never used to have. Months passed. I grew taller. The city changed coats from winter to spring. The cafe stayed on that corner, always with a cup on the table at the exact time Mom walked by. People say protection is supposed to come